Don't miss the Cheryl Underwood Show.
Where you at, baby?
Sure, I'm at my first alma mater, Clark Atlanta University in Atlanta, Georgia. CAU was the first HBCU in the Southern United States. Shout out to our affiliate, ATL Talks in Atlanta.
Hey y'all, how y'all doing? This is Lyne't with the Lyne't Gray Show, here with a Zoom interview. We are live here on KUAW, Knowledge, Understanding, and Wisdom, Kansas City's first global community radio station. You are most likely watching the Lyne't Gray Show right now on KUAW-radio here on Facebook. And we are Facebook Live. I would ask you to go to the page and like the page so you can always be updated when we're on air, as well as you can watch us by typing the letters KUAW on Instagram. And the TuneIn app is where you can hear it. You don't see it, but you can hear it. At KUAW.com. You can also, and we are not at the station, so I'm not going to give the telephone number because we're doing Zoom interviews right now due to station upgrades that are actually being done at the physical location. But I want to thank you all, and I am super excited about our guest today. We have with us Andrew Boykin, and he is the founder of Rest in 2050. When I tell you all, this is an amazing program that he has come up with, and I will let him explain it to you more. I will let him first introduce himself. We will go into explaining more, and we will ask questions. Mr. Walker, I did send you the email via the station page, send you the website so you can pull the website up, but I'll let you know when we're ready to pull it up. And you have, yes, it is. Yes, it is. It is so exciting. We'll go ahead. Andrew, go ahead. And it is a pleasure. It is such a pleasure to have you on my show. I mean, like you said, excited isn't the word, but that's the word that I can use. And but I want you to go ahead and introduce yourself and then give us a little synopsis of Rest in 2050 as we will discuss it more in the coming hour.
Okay, so first, thank you, Lyne't. I am super honored to be on your show. George, thank you. I'm excited. So let me calm down. Let me breathe as I tell everyone else. And to get it right off into this, Rest in 2050 is our website, restin2050.org. And that is somewhat of just a play on words, because what we're doing is we're actually doing what's called the restoration. That's yes. The actual name of our 501c3. And our 501c3 began 3 years ago. It started out as a 32-year plan.
Wow.
This 32-year plan says that we need to take our time to actually plan something. Yes. They say if you plan to fail, or those who fail to plan,
fail to plan, they plan to fail. Yes.
So our goal was to actually have a real long-term plan. So in 2018, we began the restoration. Now, let me back up. Now, prior to that, I had did this thing called Dinner and Dialogue. Dinner and Dialogue started out a men's support group in 2003. Mm-hmm. And men from all walks, all ages had an opportunity to learn about ourselves, share ourselves, and hopefully grow from what we learned about ourselves. And we did that for about 14 years. And what we usually ended up with were the things that we needed to do and that we wanted to do. And that conversation we found began to echo not only from and within other circles, but as we started to do research about our own plight and our own pains, we found out that these stories were similar all around the nation, if not the world. Many people were talking about the same things that we were experiencing. They were experiencing too. But what we ended up finding out is it was still talk. because this conversation is not new. This conversation was going on back in the 40s. This conversation was going on in the 50s, 60s, 80s, 2000, and it's the same conversation. And the reason that I started with the 40s and the 30s is that the conversation, and I believe, and I wasn't there, but I believe the conversation was not going on in like the late 1800s when those slaves were actually freed. What they did, because of what they knew, is they actually purchased land. They owned land, and they knew the importance of owning land. To give you an example, one of our board members shares the story of how her grandfather, just free from slavery, purchased 6 plots of land because he had 6 children, and he wanted to give his children a heads up or advantage so that they would own land and develop it so that their children would be a little bit further ahead of the game. Well, unfortunately, his children did not fully understand not only his travels, his understanding of land ownership, but they didn't understand their own power. What they did was they moved away from Arkansas, where the land was, and they moved north to Kansas City, and they had no desire to go back to Arkansas, especially during those times. But what they did was in the mid 70s, early 80s, I believe, was they sold the land for $18,000. That board member, she said, Arkansas. She passes by that land daily, and she looks at this giant gated Benai Jehuda temple worth millions of dollars sitting on this beautiful land that's only just.
I was going to say that. Yes.
And she looks at her family plots and just shakes her head, So,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, please.
So that's what I was gonna. You went into saying our goal, so that's the reason why I said go ahead and flow with it. Because I was gonna say your goal, and you said it.
I need you to slow me down because I'm just so excited. And
you know what? I love it when people are excited because then I don't have to pull the interview from you. You're willing to give it. And so and when you're willing to give the information, that helps our listeners be able to formulate questions to send in and text to me or message to me or something like that. So go ahead, your goal.
So our goal is to actually do something about the talk. And when I say about the talk, I can best reference Malcolm and Martin because I don't know of the stories before them, but I do believe they were referencing stories of Marcus Garvey and others, Frederick Douglass. I'm just throwing names because I don't know. But the stories that they were saying, what we need to do, and the travels that they were making, and the desires to unify, those stories were the same stories we're using today.
Yes.
And we don't do anything differently. If we don't do anything differently, our children's children will be having the same conversation.
Yes. And I appreciate that you said that because you feel the same way I do, which is, and I always say, I'm tired of meeting. I'm tired of meeting. You will not find Lyne't in another meeting because unfortunately I have met with people so much and I'm like, I want to see, because, and it's real to me now, because when I first started doing meetings, my daughter, who's now 27, she'll be 28 this year, she was 3 years old. And we were doing meetings, and the bulk of my meetings were done when my now soon to be 17-year-old in 2021 was 3 and 4 years old. And we were discussing this, and he's about to graduate high school and he wasn't even in elementary school when I first started meeting with people. And so I am so grateful for what you're doing because you've actually put action to this. What I want to do is, Mr. Walker, if we can pull up the website, and we're going to introduce your mission and your vision and things. We're just going to go down the webpage. So We will not eat from this seed that we plant today. Please explain the restoration and that statement right there. I feel it is so powerful, but it is something that we as a people seem to neglect. And that is where our vision is lost. And that is why the reason why the generations have not improved. So can you please explain the restoration and we will not eat from this seed that we plant today?
So basically, what we're saying is, in order for us to truly restore, our goal is to plant a seed, plant many seeds, shall I say, and we will not eat from those seeds. Meaning, many people in today's time, they can't wait to plant a seed and then watch it grow and then utilize it so that it can do good right in their moment.
Right.
And I actually have no problems with persons who are living in their today and making the most of their today.
Yeah, because you must, but you still have to plan for the future.
Exactly. So this 32-year plan says that we will not do anything until that time clock that you see underneath that seed, those 2,000 plus days.
Yes.
When 2050 gets here, that's when this kicks off. That's the beginning of this, meaning we are going to plant seeds, grow those seeds, build around those seeds, plan with those seeds, so that when 2050 gets here, all of our planning, all of our preparation, all of our strength will allow us to continue seamlessly with resources.
Awesome.
With the resources that we have already established. So when those persons get to 2050 and they're saying, okay, who's going to fund us now? Or what land are we going to build on? Are we going to rent? Are we going to lease? What are we going to do? Well, those plans and those questions will have been answered 10 years prior, because the lands will have been purchased, the monies will have been grown, and then we will actually continue in 2050 with our growth so that they can actually start to plan for 2100.
And I want to ask you a very important question, because, you know, a lot of people seem to think that you have to reinvent this idea that you did, because where you, the blueprint that you use, can you explain to people the blueprint that you used in order to establish the restoration for our people? Can you go ahead and go into detail about the actual, where you got the information to implement your vision?
So 3 years ago, I'm sitting at a coffee table one morning with this gentleman explaining this dream. And he says, have you ever heard of the Harvard Endowment? And I said, no, what's the Harvard Endowment Fund? Look it up. I looked it up, and there was the dream. There was my dream, excuse me. That was their reality. And when I say it was their reality, the Harvard Endowment Fund started in 1974. Excuse me, excuse my excitement. The Harvard Endowment Fund did not start in 1974. It was going on for a while, but it had about $1 billion in it in 1974. And the local bank president, who just so happened to be the treasurer for Harvard's endowment, told them, you know what, you all need to think of something different so you can grow this by leaps and bounds. And not only did they follow that instruction, but they then set in motion in 1974 plans, structures, and then they planted seeds. And 47 years later, they now can boast that they own the largest endowment in the nation. And some say in the world. It's now worth $40 billion.
And so I need people to understand what he's saying, because I'm 45 and the Harvard Endowment started right after I was born. What year was it?
1974.
Okay, so it started 1 year before I was born, and it is literally almost $1 billion a year in growth, because someone had the vision for 46 years later.
Mhm.
No one said, well, what about us? What are we going to do with the money right now? And so
Exactly.
they had a vision for growth for the future. And that's what we lack in planning as a people. I will always say, as a people, we lack the ability to see 50 to 100 to 500 years in advance. That is
Exactly.
something that we really, and that's the reason why you can go back to pre-civil rights movement, the 30s and the 40s, and the conversations are the same that we're having here in 2020s,
Exactly.
because the vision that was put forth, we did have certain people like you who many don't know. That's the reason why I'm giving you this platform. And then we had people like Marcus Garvey and several other people who thought up in the future, but there was too much to me. What about now?
Exactly.
And so a lot of the visions didn't get supported. But what I tell people is, if you love your children, you will make your children the priority, and your children and your children's children, and you'll eat from what you can attain today, but you'll set up something for them in the future.
Exactly.
I want to thank you for giving that example. What do if people want to read more about that to get more of an understanding of what you're doing? What
So
website do they go to?
regarding what I'm doing, or
The Harvard, because a lot of people will want to know about the Harvard endowment fund.
they can just Google Harvard endowment, and it will
Okay.
pull almost everything. And when they
Okay.
and when they start Googling that and get into this excitement, what they will find out, they will start looking and find out that Harvard owns land all over the world. Harvard owns vineyards in California. It owns crop fields in New Zealand and everywhere. So they
And I want to say this. I'm thanking you for saying all of this, because my great grandmother was the granddaughter, sadly, the granddaughter of the slave master. And her mother was the daughter of the slave master. And when her mother left Alabama, they were on a leverett plantation in Alabama. Her mother moved them to Chicago, and she put her children through school and everything. But one thing my great grandmother taught my great grandmother that she taught me, my great grandmother owned land in all 50 states.
Wow.
Even if it was a single plot of land, she said that her mother and her family members who were before her bled and died and were tortured on this land. This land is rightfully ours, but nobody's going to give it to us.
Right.
They were given a portion, certain slaves were given a portion of the leverett plantation. But of course, Alabama, they were ran up out of there and the land was taken back. So what she did, so this is why I'm excited about the restoration, because she passed away in 2000. She was born in 1902 or 1904. And she passed away in 2000. And when she passed away in 2000, this is what I need y'all to understand. Like the lady from Arkansas's parents did, don't sell your family's land.
Exactly.
You are giving us, because the person who my grandfather inherited, you know, his mom, it was his mom, so he inherited everything, and he sold everything off. And the vision is not seen by many of us, that the land is the power.
Exactly.
The land is the money. So with the restoration, I am so excited for what you're doing. Mr. Walker, can we go to the 2020 or the 2050 vision tab?
Yes. I mean, it's wow. Our stories is
yeah, it's
connected. We really are. You know how much our shared desires, including our shared pains, give us so much commonality.
Absolutely. And actually, Mr. Walker, I'm going to save this one towards the end, because this is an amazing story. So let's go and introduce his board members. We're going to have you introduce your board members.
Okay. So our board members are spread out, because what we're trying to do is make sure that we are touching this nation for starters.
Yes.
You know? And I'll start with Bridget. Bridget is out of Houston. And Bridget and I, we met on the golf course. And it just so happens that I started to share the 2050 vision with her. And Bridget says, well, wow. So she starts to tell me all of her background. She's a world traveler. She's a human resources guru. And
Wow.
she connects people. And immediately she does what she does best, is she introduces me to Edgar, who is her financial advisor. And her financial advisor is in Chicago. So her financial advisor and I have this conversation about the 2050 vision. And he's so moved by it, he's starting to think of his 6 degrees of separation. And the persons, yes, that can actually manage this fund, who have managed funds in Chicago and around this nation successfully throughout their lifetime and are about to retire. But he takes it a step further, and he introduces me to a lady at Morgan Stanley, because Morgan Stanley actually has an incubator that he wanted me to apply for, hoping to get in, because he knew, just like Bridget and others, that this needed structure.
Yes.
This dream needed structure. And that incubator was designed to surround the idea with actual resources so that it could actually be structured properly.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I did not make the incubator cut. However, we still worked on the structure.
Absolutely.
So the next 3 years, we worked and we worked and we worked. And then that brings us to Sherry. Sherry is the lady who I told you in Arkansas, Fort Smith, Arkansas, who shared the story of her grandfather. And Sherry is a historian by nature. Sherry is a living history. She is living history. And she was taken by this in a sense. She basically says in our board meetings, I did not think that I can get so excited about something at my age. She's in her late 70s.
Awesome.
Is so excited about passing something on and connecting her 6 degrees of separation into this. And Edwin is an actor by trade, 40 years in the business. And again, Bridget met him on the golf course and said, hey, you need to talk to this guy about this vision.
Wow.
And we talked. Yes. So Edwin, he is filled with the desire to restore our story, especially through the arts. And next, that brings us to Kenneth. Kenneth is actually local, and Kenneth, he is.
Can you throw down some, Mr. Walker? Okay.
There you go. And Kenneth is actually local. He has a platform called Adverse Effects. Kenneth is a local businessman as well, but his platform of Adverse Effects is basically helping people understand that there is a good effect, a positive effect in the midst of their adversity. And we just have to be willing and patient enough to find that positive effect. To give you an example of a negative effect, the COVID that hit us, it basically let us know that the Calvary is not coming. And we got that term, the Calvary is not coming, from the raid on the Capitol.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
They were mobilized for Calvary.
Yes.
Since slavery and beyond, we have been waiting on someone to come and save us. And what we realized through all this adversity and this isolation is no one is coming to save us.
Absolutely.
It's not coming. So that gives us this strength, this opportunity to find that we are the Calvary.
Absolutely.
We are actually the Calvary. And our strength lies with not only in ourselves, but our 6 degrees of separation, which brings us to Flavilia. And Flavilia is out of St. Louis. And she too is a personal development person because she is in human resources and has been for years. So she understands the plight of the worker and how to keep them motivated and what they need and so forth and so on. But this is just a sample of our 6 degrees of separation. This is just the beginning of our team.
And it's a beautiful thing because it's simply, which is all we have to do is say, oh, I know someone who can blah, blah, blah. And then you stay in your position and then you say, well, I'm not the person to do that, but I know someone who can. And you bring that person on board. And the most beautiful thing about the story that you were telling is each person said, let me reach this person. Oh, I see your vision. I believe in your vision. Let you talk to an expert that you need, not just someone who says they does it, but someone who's done it for a living and they've done it on a high level and they believe in what you're doing. This is beautiful. Exactly. I will say this is absolutely beautiful. Now we're going to jump to, because a lot of people stop watching midway. So I'm going to jump to Plant a Seed and then we're going to go to Plant a Seed again in the end. But I have a lot of people who have to stop during, because their lunch break is over with at 8:30. So Can we go ahead and click on Plant a Seed, Mr. Walker, and he can explain how to plant a seed?
So there are many different ways that you can actually plant a seed. We actually have legacy type memberships, and they're explained on the first page on how you can actually get involved. But more directly and more immediately, what I am learning is to ask, to put an action statement and ask for help. So we're just asking for a simple donation. And that simple donation, when I say simple donation, imagine if many people just donated $10 and reached out to their circle, their 6 degrees of separation, and that 6 degrees of separation donated $10, and it began to spread. What would happen is, and this is the theory behind that, what would happen is by the end of the year or the end of the next 2 years, if that spreading continued, that word right there, we would actually be able to see what we did with our simplicity, with our $10. And our $10 is like maybe two Starbucks cups of coffee a month, that we're choosing to say, you know what, I'll do something different than other than my Starbucks company, my Starbucks cup a month. I'll do something different with this $5 every 2 weeks, for this month. But we will actually see what we did just within a 2-year span, a 2-year
that is the key word that I need people to understand. And so as you see, you can donate with PayPal or donate with a credit or debit card. And I will say to those who want to donate, please make a monthly donation. Just like I asked for KUAW's monthly donation, please make a monthly donation to this. Mr. Walker, can we go back to the homepage? And so in him letting you all know that there is donations, we're going to go to back to the homepage, and we're going to go to 2020 vision now.
So
2050 vision, I'm sorry, 2050 vision.
Yeah, you had mentioned about people staying in their lanes and us not being the experts. In that story, I'd like to believe when these persons back in 1974 said, you know what, we're going to die someday, and Harvard University needs to live on beyond our regular gift. How can we make that happen? But they didn't end with the question mark. What they did was said, you know what, I don't know the answer, but let me call my cousin who actually works in investments. Yeah. And the cousin investments came to the table and said, you know what, you can do it. However, it needs specific language and protections, but I don't know what those are. However, my sister-in-law, who owns this law firm, let's call her. So they start talking about trust and they start talking about language and they started reaching out to those lanes that they knew.
Okay. Yeah, and that's how but a lot of people don't understand. That is how all the other races and nationalities are successful
Exactly.
because they get experts to help them establish, whether it be a foundation or a business. They never go on their own or try to do things on their own. Mr. Walker, can you restart the 20 Vision tab? Because I'm going to have him read this to our listeners. Go back, just click on the 20, because 20 Vision is actually a story. And I want everyone to understand, and I'll have Andrew read the story to everyone.
So this will actually be a children's book that I'm looking for publishers currently. And it starts out, if you can just lower it just a little, it says, "Today, class, we will be reading my all-time favorite story." And this she's telling the story. You know, the year was 2018. And that's when our great grandparents, they got together and they began planting seeds. And to ensure those seeds would have an opportunity to grow strong, they embraced a simple vow: we will not eat from this seed that we plant today. And those seeds grew. And what happened was those seeds, they grew. And from that, those seeds grew because they were not going to eat from those seeds. But they didn't stop there. They didn't stop there at all. Our ancestors also planted other types of seeds. And to ensure those seeds would have the same opportunity to grow strong, they adopted that same simple vow: we will not eat from this seed that we plant today. And those seeds grew. And just like Harvard's, those seeds grew. Now, our ancestors began to intentionally come together. They began to intentionally plan and rebuild a future that they knew themselves that they would never see. Our ancestors, they began to purchase things like this, just abandoned land that people had passed by, and they turned it into this. They didn't wait for somebody else to put a quick trip up on there so that we can go and spend our money. They actually began to co-op. And what that really meant they actually started to cooperate. They began to bring their operations together, and their cooperations grew from smaller lands into larger cities. Now, because this generation of our ancestors had finally understood and embraced many of the valuable lessons experienced by their ancestors, they knew that there was much more seeding and safeguards that needed to take place. So what they did was they also purchased old military facilities, and they developed them into very effective incubators, accessible only to those with a restoration membership card. They bought and they owned strategic land because they knew that water ports were just as important. And later generations developed it into this. They didn't have to build Rome overnight. They just did their part. Our ancestors purchased lands and planted seeds all around the world. And those seeds grew. Our ancestors knew that space was in everyone else's dialogue but ours. Our ancestors actually purchased this. And on this date of February 24th, 2,446, their dreams are still growing. And their children's children, they began to eat, and they began growing stronger. And our children's children, they began to smile and laugh again. And now it's our turn. It's our turn to add to their efforts. It's our turn to look towards the future and pass our efforts on. And as this person is reading the story, she says, wow, I really love this story. especially now that it's my story. Thank you.
This is so beautiful, and it's beautifully explained, and it is true vision. I wanna say this to people. We have to get out of living in the now, and most unfortunately, and I want to ask this question before I make this statement, but I will say majority of the time our people are only doing vision for months, a year, max 5 years. This is a vision not just into 2050, but a vision that will, if done right, will be perpetual. This is a perpetual vision, and I love it. So I have a couple of questions that I want to ask that were sent to me while you were reading. One said, who is the restoration intended for? So I guess they must be asking, like, is it just for Black people, or do you intend it to Black people here, American descendants of slaves, or is it for all descendants of the transatlantic slave trade?
The restoration is for African Americans and African descendants, and there's 6 degrees of separation, because what we're going to find out is that our 6 degrees of separation, just like and I'm only paraphrasing from the movie, because that's the only thing that I could go on, was that Malcolm X, when he took that pilgrimage to Africa, his eyes opened, and he saw more brethren that he ever realized that he had.
Yes, when I got to Africa, because I went to Africa and it was healing, and when I stepped off the plane, it was divine, because I stepped off the plane, and the woman who greeted me after I filled out my immigration form that they have sitting there, and the woman who took the form from me literally is the twin to my sister's best friend, who she's been best friends with since kindergarten.
Wow. And
I had to stop and make sure I wasn't hallucinating. Because, you get so excited to go places. You're like, oh, they look like that. And I was like, nah, I'm looking at Dee Dee. And the woman, when she opened her mouth, she had the same voice with a different accent.
Wow.
And so it was like, wow, I'm home. Wow. And it expands in my 6 degrees of separation. It literally just closed it in. And so when you talked about Malcolm X's pilgrimage and how it changed him, I tell people all the time, I was the Richard Pryor and Malcolm X put together, and Dave Chappelle. and I went to Ghana, and I came back changed the way they did. Yes. Because you see, when you land there, it's so different. It is a beautiful thing going back home and realizing where home is. So I appreciate that you said it's open to their 6 degrees of separation. Now, one question I got from a person, he chose to remain anonymous. He said, it sounds cool, fine, and dandy, but who will purchase the land and who will own the land?
Remember those lanes that you talked about. Land purchasing is not my lane, nor anyone's on the board. However, there are persons who not only are versed in land purchasing, and I'm not talking about property, I'm talking about
land acquisition, not purchasing. Acquisition and purchasing are 2 different things. Yeah,
exactly. Now, one of the things that has been incorporated into this 32-year plan, and the reason that we're not purchasing land until around 2040, 2045-ish, is because there are other blueprints out there. And those blueprints actually says that Native Americans actually have their lands, and those are sovereign lands that are not United States lands.
Yes.
And there is a blueprint out there on how that process took place. There were pains involved. There were supporters involved. There was legislation involved. There was a whole process involved that is now a blueprint. So our goal is to find out not only how we can acquire this land, get this land, but to actually have this land ours, not paying an indebtment to Britain or whomever else may have titles on this land,
Right.
but own this land forever. So that's
wonderful.
Still being worked out because our 6 degrees of separation has not introduced us to those minds that know how to make that process, who know how to put that process in place so that we can support it and make it happen.
Okay, that's perfect. That is perfect. Another question came from T. Todd. How will the board be placed and elected in the future?
We will actually have
replaced. I'm sorry. How will the board be replaced and elected in the future?
Yes, we'll actually have subcommittees, and when I say subcommittees, there will actually be subcommittees that are just responsible for board recruitment and board vetting and stuff like that. Currently, our bylaws are available on the Missouri website because we are a 501c3 and everything is open to the public. But currently, our bylaws say that board members serve no longer than 2 consecutive years.
That's great.
Yes.
And how many terms are they allowed on those 2 consecutive?
The way that it's written, they can serve no more than 2 consecutive years. And that does not mean that later on in the future, should they come back and say, I can bring something else to this restoration because I have tapped into more 6 degrees of separation who are ready to do this part, they have that opportunity to become board members as well. And the reason why I would say that board members are not the guide of this. Board members are actually the support of this.
The support, yes.
This is what I'm bringing. This is what I am bringing, not what I'm directing, not what I'm overseeing. This is what I am bringing, this piece, so that this picture can come closer together.
That's beautiful. Now, I have a statement when you brought up the sovereign nations of the Native Americans. I have a very close part of my 6 degrees of separation is someone in Alaska. And he and I were talking, and he's not a Black man, he's a white man. And he said that what he feels that would be great for reparations is what they're doing in Alaska, which is the U.S. is, as a part of their agreement with the Native Americans in Alaska, they have given them enough money to educate the children from, I guess, young from womb all the way to graduate school in the top schools. But there is a mandate that the parents are involved in the children's schooling. All of the children have to do like arts. Every child must learn how to play an instrument to a high level, as well as read the music, because we all know that playing instruments and reading music develops the mind. And so then they take the students that are there in Alaska, take the Native American young people, and they fund them to go to schools like Harvard, to the best schools, Wharton School of Business, Harvard, places like that where they get great degrees. But the purpose of sending them to that school is to highly educate them and bring them back to Alaska to work. And so that is something that I think, I think that is an amazing vision that they have that has been working, because one of the ladies, one of the people who is like really high up there when it comes to the oil industry and everything, it's a young lady who was educated through that system, and she's a grown woman now. And she was educated at Harvard. And when you were saying that putting people in place that know what they're doing, it does. They started this vision. This woman's in her 30s. So they started this vision long ago, like you're doing, and it had to come full circle to fruition for it to come back, for the lady to be able, they've seen the first real fruit of the effort that they put in. But like you said, they did not eat of that seed that they planted right then and there.
Exactly.
The parents didn't use the education at Harvard for themselves.
Mhm.
They didn't use the money for the education for themselves. They sank it into the children, So I truly, truly appreciate what you're doing, because forward vision is what we need in order to move our people forward, in order for this thing to work. Now, you said something about memberships in the future. So right now, kind of like, and I hate to keep bringing up Native Americans, but kind of like the tribal card. Whereas, I have a she's like a little sister to me, and her grandmother or great grandmother was Native American. And so they put them on the registry and gave the woman the tribal card, and now all of her children and descendants have access to the Native American benefits because they have tribal cards, even though she appears to be white, but she's Native descent. So that's how the membership will work with the restoration as well.
The easy answer is yes. And when I say the easy answer is yes, the way that we have it carved out right now, I'm not familiar with the tribal card, but I am familiar with a military card, because I'm a veteran. And in order to get on military bases, I have to have my ID card. And what's offered on the other side of that base are many resources
that you do not see here. Right.
Exactly. So the goal here is to offer a membership card that is generational, meaning this is why Sherry, one of our board members, our oldest board member, is so excited, because she's going to leave a generational card that her children's children will continue using. Now,
that's awesome. Yeah, that's like the Native American tribal card. So I love this idea, and this idea has me so excited. Y'all don't understand. I've been counting my coins so I can get a family membership to put my generations into this project, because one thing I will say is Andrew is a do person. He's not a talk person. He comes up with the idea and he does. And I truly, truly appreciate this about you. My last question that I have for you, because we have to go to our Dos Minutos with Jorge. My last question is, give people information of how to contact you. We have the website here, but is there any extra information that you want to give?
The best way to contact us is through the website. There's, if you'll scroll down to the very bottom, it says, contact us, or there on the top. The best way to contact us is through the website. We check this website daily.
And the website is REST, R-E-S. I'm going to let you go ahead and do that. Go ahead and spell it out for them.
Yeah. REST in 2050, R-E-S-T-I-N, meaning in 2050, our generation is going to rest, but the new generation is going to pick it up. So our building, we're going to put our shovel down, but rest in 2050 at gmail.com. And if you forget it,
And the website is restin2050.org. And so, Andrew, I truly, truly want to thank you. And I want to say this publicly. The reason Lyne't is so excited, and the reason Lyne't fully supports the restoration movement, is because you would not have the Lyne't Gray Show if Andrew wasn't the type of person he was. Oh, wow. I was going through severely in my divorce on Thanksgiving of 2015. And that was when I was just ready to end it all. And I made a post that did not say that. But Andrew, with his foresight and his divine vision, inboxed me and said, "You should not be alone right now. Where are you?" I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, because your actions that you took that day and the following day or the following Monday, you and Pastor Brooks, I truly want to publicly thank you on this platform, because life is so much better than it was Thanksgiving Day of 2015. So I want to thank you. I am so grateful, and I'm trying to hold back tears, y'all, because y'all don't know how much this means to me. And so I ask everybody to fully support the restoration, because Andrew is a man who just does not plan and talk, but he has proven that what he says he's going to do, he's going to do. So his credit, as we say in the hood, his credit is good with me. Thank you, Andrew. And we're going to shift over to my son, George Fuller, Dos Minutos with Jorge. What you got for us this week, George?
Woo, a lot of good stuff, a lot of bad stuff. No, just to kind of give updates. Simply put, I did a speech this past Friday for Rethink Youth, which is a program held out of Kaufman's Foundation, and it specifically was aspiring from Rethink Education, and it was a youth perspective. The affirmation that I gave to them was to recite it for 21 days. So just in case somebody may be listening to this, they are supposed to be reciting good morning, I love you, I matter, and what I have to say is valuable 3 times in the morning. And then at the end of the night, you're supposed to confirm yourself. So they're supposed to be at the end of the night, when they finish for their day, they're supposed to be reciting, I belong, I am valued, I am loved, and I exist to make a difference. I am enough. And those were just the words to say that you are here presently, and you're supposed to be here. It was divinity, and it was always meant for you to be here at this point. So it kind of goes into exactly what you're saying, and acknowledging those that had an impact on your life. Those are the affirmations and confirmations that I've been working within myself. We talk about politics just a little bit. I'm going to jump in for 2 different bills. One is federal. It's called the American Rescue Plan Act. It heads the Senate floor, or no, it should be going to the Senate floor. After the House approved it last week, it was a COVID-19 relief package, including more than $40 billion. The Senate plans to vote on amendments and the legislations this week. You might want to check with your senator, Cleaver. I don't know who is. I don't want to say Josh Hawley, but go ahead, check in with Josh Hawley to make sure they're actually following through with that. Because if enacted, the investments of the ARPA will help prevent millions of low-income people from losing their homes during the pandemic, and will provide communities the resources they need to help people experiencing homelessness be safely housed during and after the pandemic. We've seen the Scott Inky Center happening right here in Kansas City. It should be something else. It should be more to it. It's something. However, you still want to make sure dollars are going to, because I'm not gonna jump in it. I'm gonna keep my mouth shut. Senate Bill 55. Hey, you all get to go vote for that later on throughout this lifetime. Senate Bill 55 is the state Senate grows education bill. This is an education bill that would allow any city in the Missouri with over 30,000 residents to have a charter school. This impacts your public schools. This impacts the funding and dollars that go through it. Please make sure you are looking into your actual senator, as this has passed the Senate and is now going to the House floor. But you want to make sure that you read that bill thoroughly and know that they put in some things that may not always be great. It may look great on paper, but it's not great in action. So you want to make sure you judge those accordingly. And lastly, this month is now, we're in Women's History Month. We're discussing the impacts of women on our lives. In the last article I wrote was for Black male educators, you matter. And within that article, I still had to include the phenomenal women that have impacted my life that always are going to be considered. So I have to make sure I say that if you have not watched the Billie Holiday versus the United States of America story on Hulu, take the time. I promise you it is going to impact you. And then I'm going to leave you with an excerpt from a poem I wrote titled Strange Fruit. This is the very end, so that way you already know the conclusion. Strange fruit, why do you have to be me? A villain in their eyes, no matter my affinities, ambitions, or accolades, despise for the color of my leaves. And if you want to know more about Strange Fruit, you have to watch Billie Holiday. It is the song that made Billie Holiday the icon she is and the legend she is. And that was the song she forced everyone to hear. Sometimes you got to do things that most people aren't ready to be hearing, and they need to see it because that is the truth. And so when I say hashtag Fuller for the people, take the time to know what's going on, where your dollars are being spent, and know what's impacting you personally. And as we learned earlier in this show today, make those investments for your legacy. And when I say investments, we're not talking about putting it on the craps table and hoping it turn around on the roulette table. We're talking about making long-term investments. You may not eat
the restoration. Absolutely. That I will promote that. The restoration. I want to thank everyone, Andrew Boykin, George Fuller, Mr. Walker. You never get credit for me, but I want to thank you for being such an awesome engineer and keeping my show flowing. I want to give you all thanks, and I want to send everyone away with joy, love, peace, happiness, health, wealth, well-being, and total enlightenment. This is the Lyne't Gray Show, and our special guest, Andrew Boykin, with Rest in 2050, the Restoration Project. Thank you all. I will see you all next Tuesday at 8 with my little brother. I don't know the name of his podcast, but y'all will see that on there. See y'all next Tuesday. Bye-bye.
All right, you're listening to KUAW Radio, Kansas City's global community radio